A thin, strange man in a black robe stood before Subaru, who was tied up and staring with empty eyes, and the man bent his neck at a scary angle while asking if Subaru was Pride. He politely introduced himself as Betelgeuse Romanee Conti, an archbishop of sin from the witch cult, saying he was entrusted with the duty of sloth. And then he laughed, in a bizarre way that showed the madness in him. This unsettling meeting made clear that the witch cult and its insane leader had taken an interest in Subaru, who had no strength to resist in that moment. Later, under a bright sky, Subaru trained with wooden swords in the courtyard of Duchess Crusch Karsten's mansion, where Wilhelm, an old swordsman with great skill, easily knocked Subaru down again and again. Crusch watched from the terrace and spoke honestly but kindly, while Rem stood quietly nearby, always ready to support Subaru even when he felt weak. Subaru remembered the recent duel with Julius that humiliated him, and he also remembered how Reinhard, the sword saint, had visited to apologize for not stopping that fight, calling the duel meaningless in a way Subaru could not accept. Reinhard believed the duel should have been avoided through calm talk, but Subaru could not allow anyone to say the duel had no meaning, because to him pride and loss were real and could not just be erased by smooth words. Hearing Reinhard say he had even lost Emilia felt like a knife in Subaru's heart, because the truth of their painful parting still weighed on him. Subaru ended the talk and walked away, feeling small and angry, and later collapsed in the grass during training, where Rem gave him a lap pillow and stroked his hair with gentle hands. When Subaru asked Rem if she thought he was pathetic, she said yes without hesitation, but also said she would stay with him because she wanted to, which confused and comforted him at the same time. Rem's simple reason, because I want to, lightened Subaru's chest even though he still felt lost about Emilia and how badly he had handled everything. He relaxed into Rem's kindness and tried not to think about the worst things crowding his mind, even as he knew he was rotting away inside since the day of the royal selection. Subaru wandered the capital with Rem and noticed how the streets felt different, like rumors were stirring everyone's attention, and they stopped at Cadman's fruit shop. Cadman joked about Subaru being a two-timer since a different girl had been with him before, not recognizing Emilia due to her concealment magic, and then pointed Subaru toward a big royal notice board. The sign announced that the royal selection had started, listed the 5 candidates, and spread details to the public, making the city buzz with opinions and predictions. Crusch Karsten and Anastasia Hoshin were seen as the top 2 by many people, with Crusch admired as a brilliant noble with real achievements and Anastasia praised as a sharp merchant rising fast like the legendary Hoshin of the Wastes. The other 3, Priscilla, Emilia, and one more, were more unknown to the common folk, and people argued about how such different figures had all been chosen. Subaru felt uneasy inside as Cadman shifted from praise to prejudice when he reached Emilia's name, calling her a half-demon and saying it was stupid for someone like her to be a candidate. Cadman, who otherwise seemed kind and decent, said many people feared half-elves because of the Witch of Jealousy, a terror from 400 years ago who swallowed half the continent in shadow, until the Holy Dragon, the Sage, and the Sword Saint stopped her. He said the witch was known to be a silver-haired half-elf, and that fear made people avoid anyone who seemed like her, even if it was unfair to judge individuals that way. Subaru tried to defend Emilia in clumsy words, saying she might be a good girl doing this for the country, but Cadman said the world would not accept her and warned Subaru not to talk about the witch openly. Subaru's chest ached because he knew Emilia's harsh reality, but also remembered how he himself had broken her trust with selfish demands, and the memory of her pained voice telling him she could not understand unless he said things clearly stabbed him again. He felt both guilt and anger. He wanted gratitude for what he did, even if his help had strings he refused to see, and he hated that she kept her burdens hidden so he could not truly know her. Cadman told Subaru that the witch is a symbol of terror and that people cling to the few things they know to protect themselves from things they do not understand, even when it means hurting others. Subaru followed Cadman back to the shop, weighed down by cold sweat and a mind in turmoil, and found Rem had sold out the entire fruit display while he was gone. Cadman groaned, half grateful and half wounded in pride, while Rem asked Subaru for praise in a rare, childlike way that made him smile despite his heavy heart. Subaru petted her head and repeated how incredible she was, and she still insisted her sister was even more incredible, a running joke in her own soft logic. Back at Crusch's mansion, Ferris, Felix Argyle, slipped into Subaru's room with a carefree smile and cat-like charm, and began another session to heal Subaru's damaged gate using water magic. Ferris teased Subaru and then explained in his own tone that Subaru was weak compared to him, which Subaru accepted because he already knew he lacked strength. Ferris admitted he had no talent with the sword but had other gifts, so he was content being a different kind of knight, and he urged Subaru to abandon thoughts of revenge before they led to death. Ferris's treatment felt gross and heavy because healing the gate meant flooding mana through Subaru's body to clear damage caused by overuse and reckless doping, and Ferris said he had to push through the worst places first. Rem stepped in, hugged Subaru's head against her chest, and asked Ferris to stop mixing jokes with treatment, saying some things could not be brushed off as pranks. Ferris suggested with a sly smile that parts of what he said were for Subaru's sake and parts for Crusch's goals, which made Rem decide to be present for all future sessions. After Ferris left, Rem explained calmly that another person's mana moving through Subaru made him more open to their words, which meant Ferris's advice could have sunk deeper than Subaru realized. Subaru checked himself in a panic and asked if he was changing, and Rem reassured him gently that he was fine and that she was always watching him. He promised to be more careful since they were inside a rival faction's home, and Rem quietly accepted while standing guard over him without complaint. Crusch met Subaru on the stairs at night wearing a simple gown and a cape, different from her usual military uniform, and invited him to have a drink and talk in the cool air. She poured alcohol for herself and water for Subaru, and said she did not bring him to interrogate but to speak openly as people in rival camps who should still respect each other. She admitted she had been very busy because of the royal selection, that Ferris and Wilhelm were also working hard, and that she was gathering men and supplies for a particular task. When Subaru asked what task, Crusch hinted Wilhelm's past was tied to it, and she might have said too much already, showing a rare, playful restraint about a subject that was not hers to reveal. They spoke about her sword lessons and how she had been mocked as the little Karsten princess who liked dirty work more than flowers, until her first command changed public opinion. Crusch said that first battle only drove off demon beasts rather than annihilating them, and she felt it was naive and embarrassing, even if people now praised her widely for it. Their talk showed how Crusch viewed praise and blame as two sides of public life, and how she measured herself by her own standards, not by rumors. Subaru tried to ease the awkward mood, and they shifted back to lighter topics about her days since the royal selection began, with her mansion now bustling with deliveries and visitors. The calm night and simple drink gave Subaru a small break before fate pushed him toward horror and loss again. Later, Subaru set out toward Roswall's village with Rem, but detours and delays added up, and by the time he approached, he saw white smoke and a silence that did not fit a busy village. The fire had already burned out by the time he arrived, and the smoke rose from charred remains as Subaru slowly realized the scale of what had happened. He walked past bodies and bloody mud, stepped around the corpse of a young man, and saw the dead couple piled together, all signs of a massacre done while he was too late to help. Terror tightened around Subaru's heart when he stumbled in the square and fell, only to discover he had tripped over Petra, whose eyes stared blankly at nothing with a hole through her chest. He screamed, held her small body, and then gently covered her face with his jacket because rigor mortis had set in and he could not close her eyes, praying she would rest. He remembered voices from happier days, children who ran to him, and Petra's promise to pay him back when she grew up, and now all those warm memories were shattered by death. The village was lost, and Subaru's mind kept turning toward the mansion because there was no reason the killers would have spared Roswall's home if they destroyed the village. He felt a fear deeper than anything before, the despair of losing precious people somewhere just beyond his reach, and he dreaded seeing what waited under that clean blue sky. Clinging to the one name he could not bear to lose, he whispered Rem's name, trying to fool himself with the lowest excuse that maybe worrying for her safety kept his heart from breaking. He climbed the sloping road slowly, telling himself Rem would not ignore this attack, and he shuffled forward with the name Rem, holding up his mind like the last pillar. When he reached the mansion, he found Rem dead in the courtyard, a sight that crushed the breath out of him and sealed the truth of the slaughter. The picture of Rem's lifeless body sank into his bones, and he understood with bitter clarity that he had been too late for everyone and everything. Then, like the grip of a curse, time twisted and Subaru's awareness snapped back to the capital, where his body reeled and his mind tried to seize words that would not come. He managed to whisper Rem's name through a dry mouth, and she answered with a warm smile, saying, "Yes, I am Rem," as if nothing terrible had happened. Hearing her voice and seeing her alive, Subaru could only repeat her name over and over, so happy he could not stop, because moments earlier he had watched her die. Rem finished healing the small wound on Subaru and tried to lighten the mood, telling him a smile suited him better, but she noticed his trembling hand and let him hold her fingers. He felt how thin and warm her live hand was, so different from cold, stiff death, and his mind clung to that simple proof that she truly lived. Rem told him gently that she was alive, and that she would save him even at the cost of her life, which cut him inside because he knew she had already died for him in another path. Subaru did not tell her the truth, but in his heart he accepted the blame that he had let Rem die, first without a chance to stop it, and then because she chose to protect him. He bowed his face and held her hand tight so she would not see him breaking, and Rem, sensing his fear, patted his back and told him everything would be all right. She stayed that way, stroking him like a child until he raised his head again, her patience as steady as ever. Cadman, the fruit seller, waved the pair away when their reunion blocked his storefront, waiting until Subaru had calmed down before nudging them to move along, which showed his quiet kindness under his rough manner. Subaru left with Rem, but inside he was filled with a single burning thought, kill, that repeated like a drum, because return by death had erased bodies but not his hatred. He now had a named enemy, Betelgeuse Romanee Conti, the mad Archbishop of Sloth, who had led the witch cult and turned the village and Rem into victims. As they walked, Rem paused and said the bad smell coming from Subaru had grown stronger, which she meant as the scent of the witch that clung to him more each time he returned. Subaru remembered how he had once used that scent to mislead demon beasts, and now he suspected this power and the witch were tied to his looping, though he pushed the thought aside for later. He tried to make Rem smile and told her to keep holding his hand if she worried he would run off, and she agreed, standing beside him rather than before or behind. They walked hand in hand at the same pace, Rem quiet and content with the warmth of his palm, while Subaru's heart in that very moment was sinking into hate. Even though their hands were together, their feelings were far apart, because he was already planning death for the man who had made him watch the worst he could imagine. Subaru resolved in clear, simple terms that he would use return by death as a weapon to kill Betelgeuse and crush the witch cult that had destroyed what he loved. The world around them had not changed in signs and stalls, yet everything had changed for Subaru because now every choice was about avoiding that same tragedy. He could not forget Petra's empty eyes or Rem's body in the courtyard, and those images carried him forward more than any noble idea. He felt the witch's shadow like a stain on his soul, but he would not let that stop him from hunting the madman who laughed at pain. Back in the mansion days earlier, Subaru had studied the local script with Rem's help, trying to build skills for a future he hoped to protect, even when his heart was full of doubt. Rem watched him study with affection and asked for small signs of thanks, teasing gracefully to keep him steady while he tried to act normal in a place that was not his own. He forced himself to absorb basic lessons because he wanted some control in a life where magic and fate kept punching holes through his plans. Ferris kept rebuilding Subaru's gate a little each day, warning him not to chase revenge, and Rem insisted on being present so no one could tilt Subaru's mind with mana again. Crusch admitted she was gathering people and supplies for an upcoming operation, and that Wilhelm's story was tangled up in it, hinting at duties and debts that would matter soon. Meanwhile, the streets of Lugunica argued over who should be ruler. But beneath the noise, old fears about the witch turned easily against Emilia, making Subaru ache at how heavy her burden was. The duel with Julius, Reinhard's apology, and Subaru's pride and shame all collided with how badly things went with Emilia, and every time he closed his eyes, he saw the moment she told him he had done everything for himself. He wanted her to understand him without him saying everything, and she wanted him to say things clearly, and between them stood silence thick with promises broken. That silence was filled by Rem's steady care, her practical kindness, and her fierce vow to save him even at the cost of her life. The witch cult was not a rumor to Subaru anymore. It had Betelgeuse's face and laughter and hands that tore a village to pieces. The witch's scent clung closer each time Subaru turned back time, and he learned to accept that this was the price of a power he never asked for and could not refuse. So he chose to use it not for pride, but to make sure the courtyard would never hold Rem's body again, and the square would never hold Petra's eyes again. Holding Rem's hand, Subaru walked forward with a simple plan. Find Betelgeuse, understand his madness enough to stop it, and end him. He did not know what Crusch's particular task would bring, what Wilhelm's past meant for the battles ahead, or how Ferris and Rem would have to risk themselves again. But he knew that the next time the witch cult appeared, he would not arrive late to a silent village with smoke above it and blood beneath his feet. The volume closes with the image of two people walking side by side, hands together, while one mind fills with love and the other with hatred, and Subaru's heart is tempted far into a dark abyss where he believes killing Betelgeuse is the only way back to the light. That is how his simple will, save those he loves even if it means sinking, becomes the road he chooses. And with that choice, the next clash with the witch cult becomes not a matter of chance, but a promise he carves into himself.